All right. Do we have
All
success?
right. We back. Yeah, we have success
Heck
on
yeah.
all fronts. Love
Oh,
it
so
for us.
excited. Love it.
We had a
Thank
massive we had a
you.
massive internet reset, but we're all
I
good.
I appreciate the persistence. That's awesome.
Yeah, of
Feels
course.
really
Of
thank
course.
you. I was like getting like I was like, oh no, I feel so bad. Like you're spending all this time trying to reset your Wi-Fi just for this.
Oh,
But
we come on, we would have had to do it anyway. Gotta
I
have
feel like
Wi-Fi these days.
everyone is like, I don't know, it's not actually how Wi-Fi works, but I feel like because everyone's using it more, it's like
Yes,
working less. But that's
yes.
not actually how it works apparently. So
Apparently it works like that part of the way. Apparently there is like an international broadcasting stream or international like web stream. Because I said this to Stay the other day, and he was like, "Yeah, there is kind of a thing. I mean, everyone has their own network, but like there is a general thing that
world,
gets close."
that's so funny.
Yeah,
The little men that make the internet work. That's how
yeah,
like
all
little
inside
baby men. Yeah.
there.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Well, we're here and thank you again for joining us today
Yeah, yeah.
on this special episode of Beast Feast. That's what we call the podcast because they're called the Beasts, like that, the team athletes. So then we named the podcast Beast Feast, which
Yeah,
because
I love it.
feast of knowledge. One of
Yeah,
our seniors came up with a name, so it's a fun one. But welcome,
yeah.
Hannah. Thank you for joining us today. I'll let you like introduce yourself and give a little bit of background on you, and then I know you have a really awesome presentation for us, which I'm excited
Yeah,
about. So
yeah, of course. Well, I'm Hannah. I went to college with Ellie. I'm going to try to be professional on here, but it's
it's
probably not going to be
okay.
that way the whole time. But so yeah, so I went to college with Ellie and I graduated 2 years before,
A year.
a year
Yeah.
before. And so after I graduated from St. Mary's, where we went, I did my master's in psychology at American University in DC. And then I moved to Atlanta, Georgia this past July, and I'm working in psychiatry research.
Okay.
So I've only been here for like a year. And then I'm moving in August to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to do my PhD in psychology, which I'm excited about because I wanted to do that since I was
I know,
in
so
college.
excited for you. That's so cool. When
Yeah,
I saw your post, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so like that's the good news that we all need these days.
yeah. I mean,
Little wins like that.
never give up. Never give up. I applied like a million times, and it
That's
was a pain in
awesome.
the butt every time, and then it worked out eventually. So,
Is it,
but that's kind of yeah,
sorry, is it LSU? Is that where you're going? Or
yeah.
where's the,
LSU.
okay, cool. Awesome. That's
Yeah,
exciting. That's
yeah,
so cool.
yeah.
Cool. Well, I wanted to have you on, give you guys a little intro on the topic we're doing today to talk about body positivity, body confidence, like self-love, all that good stuff. I feel like you're like a little like guru for that. Like for me, like you always post such like positive, awesome stuff about it. And I think that you have a great perspective as a college athlete as well. We both sailed in college. And I think that athletes in particular, I think when you're going through that both in high school and college, it tends to kind of maybe be a little bit, I don't want to say it's harder, but I think that that can play like a role in how you perceive your body and how you perceive yourself. I don't know. So I thought it'd be
Yeah,
a really
no,
good
for
talk.
sure.
You have a lot of just both wealth of knowledge, both from your academics and also just from your own passion for this topic to really share with us today. So I'm excited to have you here. I know you have a really cool like presentation, but I kind of wanted to ask you first, like how you got started with caring about this so much and talking about it and sharing on social media and all that good stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, um, I'm so glad that you think that the things that I post are positive and are influential in some way because I don't know. I just like to repost this. I never create the content, but I just like to repost stuff that I see other people post um, that I think is good and could be helpful for folks. But also that being said, so like you said, I've done a little bit of like professional research on the topic, and I've done a lot of like personal investigation and podcasts and Instagram and whatever. Um, and so yeah, um, I think that the way that I got into it was it's funny because I'm in the presentation I'm going to show you guys. I'm kind of rambling a bit, but in the presentation that
Okay.
I'm going to show you guys, I have a list at the end of like all the people that I follow that are amazing and post all that sorts of stuff that I will repost and that you'll see. But I mean, prior to that, positive experience with social media. I kind of had a somewhat negative one in college, one that I created for myself. But I mean, just Discover Feed and a lot of just like exercise posts and like pictures of bodies. And it was always like the same body that I would always end up comparing myself to, kind of. And then I found this one girl whose book I actually have. I just read it. Love her. I also have all the information for it in the presentation. But yeah, so found her on Instagram, and she is like amazing, and she just led me to like all the body positivity, everything. And so I did, that's kind of my personal journey towards it. But to speak towards my academic, what I did in kind of my master's, I did my thesis on body positivity and social media. I wanted to see if looking at body positive Instagram posts and captions for 10 minutes compared to looking at like again nature blogs for 10 minutes would impact self-worth, body dissatisfaction, and body image. So I kind of looked at I gave people those surveys. I had them look at one of the two things, and I gave them surveys again. And it showed that it did positively impact their state's body image. So like how they're feeling about body image in that moment compared to how they feel about body image maybe generally. But so that was kind of cool. And I guess that's
really
kind
cool.
of, yeah. So that speaks a little bit to, I guess, did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, I just kind of thinking about how you got started in it, because I feel like I kind of went through like a similar process. I feel like the teen athletes we have, more so grew up with social media than we did, but like I feel like I got Instagram like at some point in high school, and definitely like it was big in college. And I feel like I went through all like a phase similar that you talked about, where I followed like a lot of, because I'm into fitness, like we're both athletes, like I followed a lot of fitness accounts that at first it was like helpful because it was like cool workout ideas, like especially when you're in college and have like limited access to like classes and stuff. It was like cool new ideas for things to do like by myself in the gym. And then it became this like comparison game. And then it kind of took like time towards the end of college and past 2 years out of college towards like following more positive accounts and like treating fitness as more of like something that I do for fun and not because of any sort of like end goal, which I think is hard, especially as athletes, like for so long.
Especially as an athlete.
Yeah, like it's like a requirement. It's like it's part of your routine. Like you have to do it. Like it's this mentality of like you have to go to morning workouts and you have to do runs on your own and you have to go to practice. And then it's this weird transition after college, I think, for most people, where it's like, how do I keep this active lifestyle without making it like I have to do this all the time. Like it's such a underrated thing that I never anticipated and like never realized was going to be something that I had to go through. It's really interesting. So
yeah, that's actually been kind of like my most recent part of like my journey through all this, my personal journey through all this. So I found this girl, Megan Jane Crabb, when I was, I guess, a junior in college, maybe my junior spring. And things very much changed for me after that in terms of how I viewed my body. And I never really personally, so they say, actually, I think that they say that the behavior change comes first and like the negative beliefs kind of linger around for a while. But for me, I had it a little bit differently where like I guess my views and like intense feelings towards my body kind of changed, but my exercise habits stayed. I didn't really toy around with like what you're talking about in terms of like not exercising because you have to. I was still in the realm of like exercising half hour a day, 5 days a week is like what you should do for your health. That's the best thing for your health. That's what the government says, like that's what we should do, right? But you just come to realize that it's not really, it can't really be that way. But that's what I've been most recently kind of dealing with and experiencing. There's a lady in this podcast, it's called Food Psych. I have it in the presentation, and I also have like a link to it, or I have a link to her Instagram in there as well, just because she's amazing. I listen to this podcast, there's like 300 episodes, and she talks about like literally everything, everything within like the food and eating relationship realm. She talks about it all. So that's super cool. And she talks a lot about like joyful movement, which is essentially what you're saying. So like not having an instrumental relationship with exercise, not doing exercise because you're trying to shape your body, you're trying to burn calories, or even just like because you feel like you have to for whatever reason that may be, for like health or whatever. It's actually ultimately best to just do it when you feel like doing it and do what you feel like doing, and kind of like strip away the
And then it'll,
assumptions that we have with it.
and then like I found too, it's like I end up like it, I think that way it becomes part of your life for longer, like, and movement becomes part of your life longer than if it's like I have to do it. I don't know. And that, like you just said, is kind of, I feel like that's like the end part of it, or maybe that's like a later process, because like that's been my most recent thing. Like even with like quarantining, like the other day I was like, I gotta go like work out or something, and then I was like, like have to, and if I really want to just chill today, I can, or I can like go for a walk.
Exactly.
Like it's fine. The world will keep turning. Like
No, exactly.
But no, I think it's hard. Like I think especially with what am I trying to say? Like with athletes, like we were saying, and that's what like a lot of our, for your knowledge, like a lot of our kids that do the Beast program do competitive sports in high school and maybe want to do them in college, but a lot also don't. So it's kind of an interesting balance. But I think it's hard. Like I think that the cool thing that we offer is a way that you can move and participate in sport and activity without it being something that you have to do. Like we have class 4 days a week, and sometimes kids show up all 4 days one week, and the next week they don't show up at all. And like I think that's awesome, because it's showing them that it's like this can be when you want to do it. It doesn't always have to. It's not like you have to show up and you're going to be in trouble if you're not here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's cool.
Yeah,
it's fun. So do you want to get into your presentation? I'm so excited to see it. For those of you listening, we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on one of those platforms, maybe head over to YouTube and check us out there so you can see Hannah's cool graphics. Or I'm sure it'll be still interesting to follow along with just the audio, but maybe hit the YouTube.
Yeah, I got to. I'm going to show you. I'm working on my articulate nature of speaking, which sometimes can get a little bit, as you obviously know, because you know me relatively well, can get a little bit scattered. So bear with me through this.
It's been so funny. Like I can't listen back to the podcast that I've been recording because I just hear myself.
No.
I am sounding like a crazy person. Like,
I'm sweating thinking about it.
Just don't
But yeah, so again, just a disclaimer, like Ellie said, I've done some personal research on this stuff, and I've done just some individual research on it. But something I want to actually talk about before, because I was thinking about this earlier and I didn't bring it up.
Go for it.
Something I want to talk about before getting into the presentation is that I think that it's interesting that, so the information that I'm about to give you guys, I think is really valuable. And I wouldn't have ever really found most of it or had access to most of it or read most of it if it wasn't for like actual Instagram. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have known any of these things. But it's also funny because if it wasn't for actual Instagram, I probably wouldn't have had the need for them that I had when I found them, if that makes sense. You know, like a lot of my personal issues that I had with my body when I was in college stemmed from what I saw on my Instagram feed. And I didn't realize that for a long time, right? And so then once you realize that, you're like, oh, social media is the devil. But then you're like, no, it can give you so much, you know, fruitful information and like other ways to look at things. So I think that's just an important, someone said that on a podcast I was listening to a while back. They were like, gotta thank the Discover feed sometimes we don't need the Discover feed, you know, but
yeah, exactly. That's interesting to think of it that way, but no, that's a good disclaimer.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see if I can share this puppy for you guys.
There we go.
Okay. So I made a prezi because I was feeling fun. All right. So can you see?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay. So what we've got here, so when Ellie asked me to be on this, you know, little podcast, she was like, I just want you to talk about body positivity and body acceptance and kind of whatever you want, essentially surrounding those topics. And originally I went to make this PowerPoint and I was like, oh my God, there's so many things. So hence the very brief overview. It's a very brief overview. And there were so many things that I wanted to put in there, and I tried to pick kind of the most important and most comprehensive ones. But so I do a little review of the anti-diet movement, body positivity, and self-acceptance.
Cool.
So maybe we go here. Good. All right. So we'll go to first the anti-diet movement, which is something that I was not familiar about even when I knew about body positivity for a long time. I didn't really know about the whole anti-diet situation until I started listening to the Christy Harrison podcast. And that was probably maybe within this past year. But basically what the anti-diet movement is a stand against diet culture and against dieting. So most of us know relatively what dieting is. I'm going to talk about that in a minute on the next slide, but diet culture in general, if people aren't familiar, is kind of the idea that what we have seen in the media being social media, TV, commercials, magazines, billboards, like advertising things that we see for human beings out there typically really only show one kind of body, which is like a thin white body, essentially, whether it's male, whether it's female. And that has really taught us societally about what that must mean for our bodies, right? And people have made a lot of money off of it. A lot of different people have made a lot of different money with diet pills, with, wraps that are supposed to burn fat on your stomach, with, going to a nutritionist and paying hundreds of dollars for like shots or like, whatever it may be that involves losing weight. A lot of people benefit financially from it, which is something to just in the United States, just to recognize that wherever the money is, that's kind of what's going to be perpetuated for a while, right?
Yeah.
And so, but this is really important because at the bottom here, it says only 5% of women naturally possess the body type that is shown in the media. So this like thin, white, like approximate BMI, I'm not sure what it is. But this like thin, white ideal that we see is actually not at all what like 95% of the country looks like, which is kind of a crazy thing to think about.
It's insane. Like, it's actually out of this world. Like, yeah.
It's insane. So let's see, let's go to the next slide, what we got. So how to tell if you're on a diet. There are a lot of diets that exist nowadays that don't refer to themselves as diets. They refer to themselves as lifestyles or, whatever it may be, but they don't use the word diet a lot of the time. But if you're restricting your daily food intake or type of food in any way for the purpose of losing weight, you're on a diet. That is, even if that is not what you've been told, that is what a diet is. To restrict a type of food or an amount of food for the purpose of losing weight, right? Yeah. Which a lot of the time can be synonymous with health, even though it's not. So for health purposes, could mean for some people losing weight, could just mean for those people that that's the food that feels best in that person's body or doesn't feel best, and that's why they're not going to eat it. That could be a health reason as well. But a health reason for a lot of folks is losing weight, right?
Yeah. I saw, sorry to interrupt you. I just saw something right before we hopped on that I thought was really cool. And it's like kind of my new motto is like being anti-diet is not being anti-nutrition or well-being. Like you can be focused on eating like quality, like, making sure that you're taking care of your body, like drinking enough water, eating fruits and vegetables without being on a diet or restricting them. Like, and that's where I think that I try to focus is like, I try to pay attention to like, am I eating fruits and vegetables? Am I drinking enough water? Like, am I eating like protein? But also if I want to like eat 3 cinnamon buns for breakfast, I don't like hate myself over it. Like that's a real life example this morning. Like I ate 3 cinnamon buns and then for lunch, I was like, I'm going to make a salad. Like, and that's the end of it. Like, and I stopped thinking about it after that. Like, and it like, I think that people, especially in the fitness like community, I think that a lot of people, when you say you're anti-diet, they're like, well, like then you're going to eat like all this sugar and all this bad stuff. And like, you're not going to take care of yourself. And it's like, no, you can care about nutrition without being on a diet. So I just want to jump in there because I literally saw it like while we were dealing with the Wi-Fi thing, like scrolling on Instagram, I saw something that said that and I was like, oh, that's so cool and relevant. So
yeah, no, absolutely. That actually reminds me of one of Christy Harrison's podcasts I was listening to yesterday was talking about, I believe that it was like the origins of diet culture, and it was talking about how I don't know what this also there's the little cutest dog outside. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you. We need to have a I don't know if you'll be able to see out the window. Do you see that little thing?
No, I just see your blinds. Hold on. I love this.
Sorry, my blinds are down. I was trying.
They're big dogs.
I know. I wanted you guys to see, but so on her podcast, I was listening the other day, and they were talking about how guilt and morality being associated with food is like a distinctly American ideal. Like you don't really like you see people in other countries like overeat, but they don't like, oh, I'm so like so much of our daily conversation is like, oh, I'm so bad for eating that. Like, oh, that's good for
Yeah.
that's nutritious, that's good for you. And then part of it is like, you know,
Yeah, that's so true. Like, I feel like especially now, which I could go on a whole tangent with like with the whole quarantine thing about everyone being like afraid of being in their house with food.
mm-hmm.
It's like the craziest thing. Like, I'm like, you
Yeah,
are
and
safe and
fear of
secure in
food
your
too,
house.
not only
You're
guilt.
yeah, like you are safe and secure in your house with food that keeps you alive. There is nothing to be afraid of. Like, you're gonna be
Yeah,
okay. Like, yeah.
yeah.
I didn't know that. I'll have to listen to this podcast, like for sure, because I did not realize that that was like just an American thing. I mean, I guess I kind of thought maybe it was more like Western. Like I figured like Europeans were like that too, and maybe I don't know, who knows? But that's interesting.
Yeah, and that being said, that does not mean that folks that aren't American don't experience like body image
Right?
issues
Yeah, of
or eating
course. Yeah.
disorders, right? But it's just that specifically that we attach morality to food in that way, and that we attach like the way that we are as human beings if we eat a certain food is kind of pretty bizarre. But apparently,
Yeah.
it's distinctly American as well. I'll send you the
Huh.
link to the fact.
Yeah, please do. I'll let you continue. So
But
sorry for interrupting and going on that tangent.
yeah, no, you're good. Love it. That's what we're here for. But so I guess in terms of talking about why are diets bad, this is basically what we just had informally was a lead into this topic. So why are diets bad? They detach us from our natural hunger and fullness signals. And they attach morality to food, which assigns good and bad food. And the issue with this, from what I understand, is that when we detach ourselves, like let's say we're going on a diet where like we can only have 1,000 calories a day and it can only be vegetables and meat, no processed food, right?
Right.
So if we go on that diet for long enough, we are going to tell ourselves that anything that's not these things is a bad food and these things are good foods, right?
Yeah.
And so they detach us from our hunger and fullness signals because it limits our amount that we can eat, right? And then it also attaches the morality to these different foods, which is a problem because foods that we then determine to be bad, we don't allow ourselves to eat to a point that when we typically do actually eat them, we have what's like a binge episode a lot of the times for folks. When they have a food that they're like, oh, that's terrible, like I can't have that, they'll eat one and then they'll eat two and then they'll eat six because they're like, I'm never eating that again, ever. I'm never going to have that. It's right.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, you're like, oh, I'll just cut a little piece of like the cookie and then you like go back and then you end up eating like 6 of them. And it's like, or if you just let yourself eat cookies, you just have one and you walk away.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then they also, so they kind of, those first 3 bullets are about kind of how it distorts your relationship to food, right?
Yeah.
But the 4th bullet is just simply that they increase your risk for disordered eating. I'm surprised I didn't put a statistic in here, but I think like you're like 3 times more likely to have an eating disorder if you have experienced chronic dieting or something along those lines. I don't have the stats, but it's wild. They drastically increase your risk for disordered eating essentially. But so I put some posts in here to kind of link us, give us some real life examples of like the morality with food and the diet binge cycle. So the morality with food, this is Kenzie Brenna. I literally love her. If you don't follow her, if you don't follow her, everyone needs to go follow her.
She's awesome.
But so she posted this picture and she was essentially, so she said, was this food, or before she wrote this part of the caption, there was another part that I couldn't fit, but she was saying that there was a point in time where she realized that she like didn't actually know how to eat. All that she knew about food was like, was it going to make me fat or what was not going to make me fat? And so she says, which basically translates to, is this food going to make me socially accepted and loved, or is it not? Because at the end of the day, if she becomes a bigger version of herself, then she's no longer as lovable than she once was, right? So I just thought it was interesting how she straight up said, like, I realized I didn't know how to eat. I didn't know like what my hunger and fullness cues were. I just knew that this was going to make me fat or this wasn't going to make me fat, and that was like what all of the decisions were based off of. And then let's see what we got on the next slide. Ooh, sorry, y'all.
It's okay.
We gotta go here. Okay.
Awesome.
So, and this is a post from Ditch the Diet. Her name's Neva, who I also love.
Yeah. I feel like we follow probably all. I feel like everyone I follow, I just follow because you've shared stuff from them, probably. But like,
you just
all
like
the
to
people,
follow.
like, I follow her, and then like I think I saw it from Hannah originally.
I know. I'm going to be interested to the list you see at the end. I'm sure that you already follow a lot of them.
That's so funny.
But so this is a post from Neva, and she was talking about, this is again back to like intuitive eating and morality with food. So like you look at her hand and you see the strawberry and the Oreo, and she was talking about how we know that a lot of processed foods for us, like in excess, isn't great. But the problem is that in our minds, when we tell ourselves that we can't have the cookie, we make it this, you know, like mysterious special thing that like we're never allowed to have. So when we do actually let ourselves have them, we have a ton of them. Which again, sometimes binge purge cycle for folks, but ultimately like diet binge cycle is what is most important, is that dieting creates this relationship with food in your mind, which is bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and like oh god.
I think that's it. I think that's all I have for the slide. Question, concern,
No, I was just gonna say, like I just, because I always like, I'm trying to be like better about like when I have these different guests on, like sharing things like from myself too, because I want to be like a resource, because I am the one that, you know, these kids see like day to day. Like, and, like one thing that this made me think of is like something that I tell myself is like eating something is always better than eating nothing. Like, yes, we don't want like a lot of processed foods. We don't want to eat like, if you only ate Oreos all day, every day, that would be concerning. But like a real life story, and like kind of, I don't want to say it's like, it was like my breaking point of realizing I had work to do in food, but like it kind of was. It was like one of them was like, I literally threw up and passed out because I was so hungry when I was on this like road trip, because I was refusing to eat like any food from like a Sheetz or like a Wawa, because I was like, they're bad for me. I can't eat any food there. It's all processed. And I got so like, I was like kind of car sick. And then I like, because I was so hungry, and I literally fainted. And I was like, what am I doing? Like I can eat a bag of pretzels, or I can eat like hash browns, or I can eat literally a milk, like one of those milkshake things from Wawa. Like anything is better than not eating. And like, I hope that no one ever like that's listening to this ever has to like get to like that point. But I think that like, that's a good mentality of like, if you are hungry, eating something is always going to be better than eating nothing. And like, processed food is not the devil. Like, just like you said, like there is no, like sugar is not the devil. All this is not the devil. Like it should be, it shouldn't be the, or yeah, like I said, Oreos or milkshakes should not be like the basis of your daily food intake, but like they're not gonna kill you.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's so right. And girl, gotta get with the Wawa soft pretzel next time you're on that road trip. That's always my go-to at a large hazelnut coffee.
I forgot how much you like loved Wawa. I feel like I have like strong memories of your love for Wawa. Yeah. Anyway, awesome.
But yeah, no, you're totally right. And I'm about to talk on this not the next slide, in a few slides, kind of about my similar experience in that realm. Let me see. Okay. Also, question: you can't see like the screens of us on this, can you?
I can see you. I can't see me. I don't know if they can see.
Okay.
Me. I think they can see me.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. There we go. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like disrupting the PowerPoint where I had the screen.
I think it's okay. Or it might just be recording this here. I don't really, we'll find out.
That's true. We will find out. So I guess wrapping up the whole diet piece is just this statistic that's important, that is 95% of dieters gain back all the weight that they lost, and usually more. So again, it's like this 5% of people that either naturally have that body, or naturally are able, or the ideal body, let's specify, or are able to obtain the ideal body through dieting. There's really 5% of folks. So that's kind of, it's important to know, because the other 95% are not represented. All right, and then I have down here is that if you want to read more about like weight regain for chronic dieters, there's an article by Tracy Mann down here.
You're awesome. Look at you citing your sources.
And yeah, you gotta give the people what they want. So this next slide is also something that I had never really, I really started thinking about disordered eating or eating disorder a lot when I listened to Christy Harrison's podcast. Because all my struggles in college and just any sort of personal body, I guess I'll give you guys the short synopsis
if
of
you're
my life.
Share whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. So basically, I mean, I was a high school athlete as well. I did cross country, and then I went to college and I did sailing. And with cross country, like, I mean, I was running a lot, but I was really slow, and I was just kind of doing it to like yada 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 chat with the people next to me. So I was never really all that competitive.
Hannah chatting? What?
What? And in college, and in high school, I also like did not even really realize that my body was like relevant for the most part. I didn't realize that it like existed and that it should or shouldn't be a certain way. And then in college, when I started sailing, I started sailing, which is a thing in and of itself. And then I also, when I was a sophomore, became a vegan, which I am for the most part still. But I was very, let's see how to put it. I guess kind of intense about like making sure that I adhered to the rules that are imposed on you by veganism. So like not being able to have butter. Like you go to a restaurant, you're trying to get some veggie fajitas. Like, are they cooked with butter or are they cooked with olive oil? Like that's kind of a pain in the butt to have that constantly like reign over your life, right? So that did reign over my life for like a year and a half. Also just involved with sailing as well. It's what I call a weight-centered sport. Figure skating, dance, sailing. There are many, many more. But I'm not going to cover two. But
I've always tried to figure out how to word it, like to people, like the weight centered. That's a good way to put it.
It's a weight-centered. It's a weight-centered sport. It's just the way, you know. And I had never been a part of that before. And I had never sailed before, but I just started doing it, and I loved it, and I wanted to be good at it. And all of, I think, of your kids that do play competitive sports will understand that. Like if you're a competitive person and you want to excel in your sport, you kind of want to do whatever it takes to get you there. And in sailing, part of that is being relatively thin. So not only did I have the sailing community, especially as a girl. And so not only did I have the sailing community, which is like mostly thin young white girls, I also had the vegan community online, which is all thin white girls for the most part. For the most part. The people that I was following through my Discover, Link, Anagram, Analog, whatever that is, that all the computers work together and show you content, mine was all thin white girls. It was probably because it started out with one and then it became a million, because Discover Feed, we know how it works. But anyway, so I was kind of intense about making sure that I exercised, making sure that I ate healthy, didn't really eat a lot of processed foods, didn't eat gluten at one point, didn't eat anything that is not plant-based. And I never underate, and I never over-exercised, I think according to the World Health Organization, right? I wasn't going to the gym and spending 3 hours on the treadmill. I wasn't, I wasn't skipping breakfast. I wasn't having meals that were too small. I ate quite a lot. I still do. But I was definitely very regimented, is a great word, regimented about how I ate and very regimented about how I exercised. If I didn't get to sit for half an hour and do 20 lunges, it was like the end of the world, right? Even though
same, like I would have like mental breakdowns if I like didn't get in like my workouts, and like, or if I like, like I literally would be like, it was like the end of the world. Like I would like panic. I would like cry if I couldn't get it in, because like
such anxiety.
Just like you, like I was so like, I want to be like so good at my sport, and I want to do the best, and I want to do everything I can to succeed. And like I tied that to food, I tied that to working out, like and like I think unlike you, like I definitely over exercised, and I definitely restricted at different points. Like I was gluten free for a while. Part of that was like health related too, but like not really. Like I think I stretched to the health because I was looking for justification, like subconsciously. But no, like it's like I don't know. I guess I don't know what the technical definition is, but I know that I had have like practice for like 4 hours. We'd have our team work out, and then I'd work out again on top of that, and like that's probably too much. like that's like that's probably over exercising. But
over exercise to compensate for eating or just alongside not eating is a major symptom of that sort of thing. But throughout my whole experience, I just I guess my breaking point, like you said, yours, my breaking point was it was some point during my junior year, and I was just like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was just like, I'm so over this, like literally ruling my life, eating and food. It's like everything that I think about. And that is what we're about to talk about, disordered eating or eating disorder. The myth that's so important is that eating disorders don't look a certain way. I am relatively here.
I love this. Wait, I hope that they can see you because I'll put whatever.
Maybe they can.
We'll
But
post,
I mean, I'm a thin white woman. By all the societal norms, I meet all of the norms. You know what I mean? But I'm not super thin. I don't look like I, maybe restrict my food excessively. I don't look like I restrict my food at all, I don't think. But the point is that not all eating disorders look like a girl who has anorexia, like look like someone who's emaciated. The really important thing about eating disorders is not only the physical side effects, but it's like the mental side effects. It's the cognitive distress that you go through with all of the just obsessive thoughts and the negative thoughts. It's like what's going on in your head that's most important, and not what people look like. There are a bunch of different symptoms of eating disorders, so I put them on here: restriction, purging, binging, perfectionism. So people that typically binge, if they are only binging, they maybe, not everyone that binges has binge eating disorder, but if they binge to the point where they meet diagnostic criteria, they would have binge eating disorder, and they're typically going to be in a larger body, right? But people who binge and purge, or people who restrict, are people who have anorexia or bulimia. People who have anorexia are typically really thin.
Yeah.
And people who have bulimia are typically, they can look like us. They can look larger than us. They can look smaller than us, but they don't really go in any specific bodily category. Nobody ever does, which is what's important. And actually, in the most recent DSM, which is, if any of your kids have taken high school psych, and if they want to take college psych, they'll learn that the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So the DSM comes out every, 15, 20 years, and it lists all of the mental disorders, all of their criteria, just things to know about them. So the DSM came out in 2013 in the most recent edition. They added atypical anorexia, which means you can qualify to have anorexia without being below threshold of body weight. So again, just eating disorders never really look a certain way. And that's a big misconception for people who kind of maybe feel like there's something wrong and want to get treatment, but they don't really think that they're sick enough, or they don't think they're thin enough. It's like, if you feel like your ways of eating and exercising are controlling your life, like, you deserve to get help, essentially. But something that I wanted to touch on that is not one of the binge eating, anorexia, bulimia, eating disorders. It's not technically, it's in the DSM, the most recent one, but it's not technically listed as an eating disorder. It's like under conditions for further study or something along those lines. It's called orthorexia nervosa, which is just something that I want your kids to know about, because I didn't know that it was a thing. And it's essentially the thing that we had and that we experienced, and that a lot of people have and experience.
That's exactly what I officially, I've with my therapist, she I guess officially diagnosed me with that at one point. And I had never heard of it either. And I was like, this is a thing? And she read the definition, and I was like, oh, yep. All right. That's me. I was like, that's what we got going on here.
Yeah. And it's really sad, because
it's a sneaky one.
A lot of the time it's sneaky. It's so sneaky. Yes. And a lot of, want to know something hilarious? I'll show you. Maybe they can't see this, but I wrote some notes, and I literally have sneaky.
Sneaky. That's so funny. Because it is. It's just it's oh,
it is.
Yeah, that's a problem. Oh,
it's like, okay, you're healthy, and then you're healthy, and then you're healthy, and then you're not.
And then it's oh, now I'm crying because I can't get my workout in, and I'm passing out because I refuse to eat tater tots.
Yeah, exactly. So, and again, it's the thing that's really crazy is that, so we were just talking about eating disorders don't look a certain way. You can't judge someone on how healthy they are just by the way that they look and the size of their body, right? But and sometimes we'll either dismiss people, because maybe they're too large for eating disorder treatment. That happens all the time. People just get turned away, and they're come back when you're smaller.
Which is insane.
What? Yeah. But so sometimes that leads us to dismiss people, these beliefs about what eating disorders are. And sometimes it leads us to not recognize something that's bad and instead praise it. So in society, people that are like type A, like go-getters, perfectionists, like always hitting the gym, like always eating well, always doing all these things, like never giving up relentlessly. That's a part of their life and that's a part of their situation. We praise that behavior as a society. And we tell people that, oh, I wish I could be like you. I wish I could have the restraint you do. I wish that I could have the dedication you do. But ultimately, it could be this. It could be this person like being controlled by their thoughts and not being able to really escape them. And to everyone else, they're like, you look great. This is perfect. Like, you should keep doing this. I wish I could do what you do. Right.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why it's so sneaky.
I feel like that's both of us too. Like, I feel like we both, like, I remember times like where you were getting, like, hearing you get complimented for things like that. And like, I know I've received compliments like that too. Like, oh, I wish I was like so dedicated to working out and like eating well. Like, no one, like, oh, I don't know anyone that like eats better than you. It's like, okay, like, in retrospect, I'm like, that is insane. Like, to think that like I would like hear those compliments to myself and be like, oh my gosh, yes, great, like validation. Like, because now it's like I hear that and I'm like, I just want to like hug like 19-year-old Ellie and be like, stop.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And another thing that I will touch on a little bit later, but I want to touch on now because it's super, super important, is not, so, I mean, critiquing and praising people's behaviors is one thing, being like, oh, you eat so healthily, you go to the gym, right? But critiquing and praising people's personal physical attributes is another thing that can actually, we think we're doing good and we're actually maybe doing harm. So an example of that is like, let's say that someone loses 10 pounds. Everywhere they go, people are like, you look so good. Like, you look so thin. You look so healthy. Whatever people say, they're getting, like, people are receiving praise.
Like,
Yeah, so people are receiving praise for having lost weight, even if they lost the weight in an unhealthy way, right? And then it tells those people that, oh, like, this body is clearly so much better than the body I had before. I have to maintain this body at all costs, right?
Yeah.
Which is also something that can be so detrimental. I actually reached out to a girl that we knew in college like a few weeks ago that I'm like a good friend of, but I just texted her randomly and I was like, hey, I've been listening to a lot of this podcast, and they talk a lot about appearance-based compliments and how praising people for weight loss can actually like really be hurtful for like their general conceptualization of like what bodies are good and not good. And, you know, ultimately you can like do people harm by like being like, you look thin or you look good or you look whatever, you know, it needs to not be about the weight or the appearance. And I texted this girl that had lost a good bit of weight in school. And I said, hey, like, love you. I realized that I had always said to you when you lost weight, like, you look so good, like, you look great, you're doing great, like, I see you in the gym, you look great. And like, I'm sorry for that, because I didn't realize at that time that like that could have been, you know, not a good scenario. But
that's so inspiring. There's like a couple of people that just came to mind that I'm like, I want to like send a similar message to, like, just to be like, hey, like,
right,
because like if I received like that message from some people that said comments to me that like still like stick out in my mind, like it would mean a lot. So like it's awesome, the idea to like that's awesome. You're so sweet.
Yeah, well, I was like, people gotta know, we gotta know. But so let's see, so we did eating disorders, we did anti-diet. Okay, so the end of this slide is just so the end of this slide is just, this is Christy Harrison. She's the girl that does the podcast. And just ultimately the point of talking about all of this is it doesn't matter what size you are or quote unquote how sick you are, or, you know, if you think that you don't deserve treatment, or if you think that you don't deserve help, or just simply like someone to talk to about whatever you're experiencing with food, if you're experiencing something negative, you still do deserve to, you know, chat with people and get that help if it's something that you want. And so now we're getting to the fun parts that Ellie obviously knows about and wanted me to chat with you guys about.
The more uplifting part, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Okay, so yeah, seriously. So after, what do you do after you find out? What do you do after I just dropped that mega bomb on you that we probably didn't realize existed? We didn't realize we'd been seeing these things our entire life and taught these things, and what do we do about them now, right?
Yeah, I think that's super important, like, just to take a moment and say, like, if you just had like a oh my gosh moment, like listening to the first half of this podcast, like, this is kind of like take a breath, and then this is kind of the like next steps area. And obviously like next
Yeah.
also should include like talking to people that are more professionals like than, you know, we're
Then
obviously not
us.
professionals,
Yeah.
like, yeah, but like, you know, like talking to someone or reaching out and like all that good stuff. But yeah, take a moment. If you had a oh my gosh moment in this podcast, take a moment, take a breath, and then now here's
Yeah,
the fun stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Good transition,
Or the
because
hopeful
yeah, that's so
stuff.
true.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first learned any of that, I was shooketh to my core. So if you're also shooketh to your core, it's all good.
Yeah.
But so what to do? Broadly, obviously, my suggestion is body positivity. I don't have like a very concrete definition here for what it is written down, but essentially what body positivity is the antidote to diet culture, because all that it does is it seeks to abolish body ideals of any kind. So body positivity there's a big misconception that folks in the body positive community think that only fat bodies should be represented, or only larger bodies can be, you know, celebrated and can be positive. But that's not true. They just don't want any ideal of any kind, right?
Yeah.
That being said, 2 disclaimers. One disclaimer is when I use the word fat just now, and I said fat bodies, I am obviously not a larger person, but I was using that not as a derogatory term, but there's kind of a movement to use the word fat just because it's a descriptor to describe bodies, right? We've attached all this negative stuff to it and how terrible it is, and ultimately it's just a word, you know? And so there are a lot of folks in the fat community that do live in larger bodies that have been just using that word and just calling themselves fat and just saying that's the way it is, and not having it be a derogatory term. So that was how I was using it, just in case anyone heard that and was like, oh, that doesn't sound quite right, but it sounds just fine. And then I think there's one other thing I wanted to say. Oh, another thing that's important is that, and I didn't know this when I started my thesis. So 2 years ago, I started my thesis, and like I told you guys, it was body positivity and to see if body positivity could impact, you know, body image and body dissatisfaction and whatnot through social media. And I didn't know, I really probably should have coined it more body acceptance, because I still use the term body positive, but the idea behind body positivity is representation of diverse body types. And considering that I don't really have a diverse body type, I like to reserve that term for people who do have them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying.
Yes. And so I typically reserve body positivity and body positive for folks who do live in larger bodies in terms of like content that I put out, and just talking about it generally. But so body positivity and body acceptance kind of go hand in hand, because as you see below, I put a few steps of kind of practicing body positivity. There's a lot of different pieces to it. It's basically just interacting with your body in like in a positive way, in a loving way, in an affirming way. And so there's a lot of different ways to do that. One of them is body acceptance, obviously. And then the other 2 that I have here are intuitive eating and joyful movement, that I will go into more. But Elle, do you want to say anything about self-acceptance or body acceptance? Or
something that like I saw a while ago, again, like probably on Instagram, like don't remember, or a podcast, don't really remember where, it's like, and like what I think of more is the self or body acceptance or self-acceptance, more so than positivity, because I think like self-acceptance and accepting yourself for who you are, whether that be anything about your personality or life experiences or gender orientation or sexual orientation or anything like that, like self-acceptance is accepting yourself how you are and being okay with it. It doesn't always have to be positive. Like you're allowed to have happy emotions about it, you're allowed to have sad emotions about it. And so like I try to think of it similarly of like body acceptance, of like I'm allowed to have negative thoughts about my body, but like what I choose with those thoughts is like what's important. And like accepting myself as I am, and like I can have a moment where I'm like, oh, I feel gross today, or like I feel bloated, or like, oh, I don't like the way that I look in those pants or whatever. But like what I have control over and like what I choose to do with that thought is what's important. And like what I try to do is choose to just say, okay, that's what it is. And like, I feel gross today. Okay, moving on. Or I don't like the way these pants look on me anymore. Don't have to wear them. Like, Or like if I really like the
Don't
pants,
have to own them, baby. Don't have to own them.
exactly. Or like if I don't like the way that they look on me, but I like the pants themselves, like maybe I just wear the pants and like roll with it. And like, you know, like
Yeah.
it's like accepting it. Like it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be like, I love my body every minute of every day. Cause like I think that's pretty unrealistic and it sets a pretty like
Yes.
high standard. But like if you can just be like, okay, like it is what it is. Like today maybe I don't, and like tomorrow I might like put on like a pair of shorts and like a sports bra and be like, I look great. Like it, you know, like you
Mhm.
never know. Like it can like change day to day. So I like that differentiator of like self acceptance and or like body acceptance and body positivity. But I think what's important is like whatever resonates with you, like whatever resonates with whoever. Like some people the positivity and like thinking positive might resonate more, but me like the kind of acceptance resonates more because it doesn't set this expectation on myself to like be happy about it all the time. Like it lets me kind of
Yes.
be okay with sitting with the like, well, that is, I don't like this part of me today, but oh well,
Yes.
not jumping on it and acting on it, like not letting one negative thought about my body like make you be like, well, we're now gonna like drink all this extra water and drink all this green juice and like go on an extra run and like whatever. It's like,
Yep.
well, that was a thought and now the thought is gone. Like so.
Yeah, no, exactly. And yeah, so to that point, some people use the term like body love, which other folks
Like that.
definitely find aversive because they think that it's like it means you have to love your body all the time, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
It certainly doesn't. None of this does. It's a
Yeah.
process, and it's all about remembering that the reason. It's all about realizing that like if you have a relationship with food that causes distress, and if you have a relationship with your body that causes distress because of the way you perceive it, it's not your fault. It's literally everything that we've been taught for our entire lives and everything that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So when you have those like hard times and when you're thinking like, oh, like I'm not being very like self-acceptance because I'm not, you know, looking at myself and loving myself. It's like, don't be hard on yourself. You've had what, 20 years, practically 15 to 20 years of life of
Yeah.
people, not people, you know, specifically and on purpose, but maybe some people specifically and on purpose, but generally society being like, no, that's not right, you
Yeah.
know? And so one of the things that I try to do is like if I feel like pretty much like you said, where you're like, if you don't like how you look in those pants, I see two options there. It's like you don't keep the pants anymore, or you decide that you don't really care how you look in the pants, right? So sometimes when I feel like I'm like looking a little bit on the heavier side, I will just like take my shirt off and whatever and just walk around and just let it
That's
hang because
awesome.
that's part of it. That's part of
Yeah.
it is interacting with your body and realizing that it's not a problem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
So for sure.
cool.
But so body positivity, I'm trying to think if there's anything else important um kind of in this realm. I guess not. I guess I'm gonna elaborate on it.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit it. Ooh,
Go for
whoopsie.
it.
To this little guy. Okay. So joyful movement and intuitive eating. So again, disclaimer, I found these two concepts through Christy Harrison's Food Psych podcast that I've only been listening to for like 9 months. But so I think I know a little bit more about body positivity specifically or body acceptance specifically and those sorts of concepts. But again, those are kind of overarching and there are a lot of different ones. So this is something that I thought we could learn from in a simpler way, but I'm not really an expert
That's
on it.
okay.
So, but so essentially joyful movement and intuitive eating go hand in hand. I'm working on both of them. Like I said earlier, I've done a lot of like body positivity work in the last few years and it's been incredibly helpful, but now I'm realizing like, oh, there's this other piece that I could probably work on a little bit more. So what that is joyful movement is essentially, like we said earlier, not having an instrumental relationship with exercise. So not exercising, A, because you think you have to, B, because you think it'll make you lose weight, C, like exercising when you just don't want to and you're not feeling it, you don't have to exercise. So joyful movement is finding ways of moving your body or time to move your body that are fun for you and like make you feel good. For example, I literally hate lunges. You won't see me doing lunges ever. And it's because that's not joyful movement for me. And I know I don't like it. So I don't really care if it's going to make my butt look better. I've been told that. I'm not really interested in doing that. Do you know what I mean? Because
Awesome.
it's like,
Yeah.
I don't take any pleasure from that. What joyful movement is not is like moving your body to burn calories or to change the size of your body, and adhering to the mindset that certain things don't count as exercise. So like Christy Harrison sometimes says, like, sometimes the most exercise that she does is like going to the store and like doing the laundry and like lifting some, you know, some stuff in the house. Like moving your body is joyful movement. It doesn't, you know, and sometimes you can have joyful movement that is, you know, you think counts as exercise, but it doesn't have to be something that counts, you know?
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to do more yoga recently, which I've done yoga for a long time, never consistently. So I've done yoga since I was in high school, but I haven't ever done a lot of yoga, obviously. So I'm sure you can speak to this, but it's been really helpful for me in this experience specifically, just because it, you know, a lot of the time, like when I was back in my disordered eating brain would be like, yoga's not working out. If you have to choose between doing yoga for an hour and working out for an hour, you better go run. You better go do whatever you're supposed to do.
I was like,
to,
if I'm not
burn that.
sweating, like if, I used to be like, if I'm not like sweating, like it doesn't count. Like it's like,
exactly.
No. Yeah.
Exactly. And so kind of changing our mindset around what is, you know, quality movement and what is not, what is worth it movement for us, what's it going to give us. But do you want to say anything about yoga or anything else?
I mean, so yoga wise, like, I mean, I actually, like, believe it or not, like my mom is the yoga expert. Like I've been pretty inconsistent with it myself. I've actually had like the same thoughts you had of like, I kind of like tend to choose and have historically, and still do, because I'm working on it, like choose the faster pace options because I think it's better. Like, all right, like that's what counts. It's like a real, you know, exercise. But same thing with this like quarantine thing. Like I've been trying to do it more, just like to slow down and breathe and connect with my body as well. But a note too, like on this is like, obviously like the athletes that are listening to it and like are like, we all do CrossFit. Like, and that is, I think people can have, it's a very divisive form of workout. Like I think people have a lot of strong opinions one way or another. I obviously love it. I think that there are downsides like to it in some segments of the communities out there, not our specific Fairwinds CrossFit community, but there's some downsides in the larger CrossFit community, in my opinion, about just what they push as priorities. But you know, that's just my personal opinion. That's not the opinion of Fairwinds CrossFit. Like that's not the opinion of anyone else that is affiliated with our gym. Like I can't speak for anyone other than myself. But I think that being said, like it's moving your body in CrossFit does bring you joy and you truly love it and it's truly fun. That is okay too. And like for me, it's like I love it. Like I love nothing more than feeling very strong in that gym and doing like lifting heavy weights and doing the crazy like gymnastics moves. And I love the people like most of all, and I love the community most of all. And like that is my happy place, like 10,000%. Like I've never felt happier than I feel like in that gym. And like I think that being said, I am very careful to check in with myself constantly of like, am I going to work out today because it is going to be fun and bring me joy, or am I going to CrossFit because I feel like I should? Especially like now that I've been coaching it, I'm like very conscious of like, I sometimes get in the mindset of like, oh, I should because like I work there and like I should be there a certain number of days a week. But like, no, like that's not true. Like I should go when it's fun for me and when I enjoy it. And I've gone through phases like this winter, like I went through, I think it was like January, like I went through like a month where I was like going to like solid core a bunch and like going to yoga classes, and I wasn't doing as much CrossFit. And at first I was kind of hard on myself. And then I was like, it doesn't matter. Like I'm going to eventually like ebb and flow and I'll come back to CrossFit. And like I did, and it's fine. And like, I just wanted to put that in there of like, cause we are obviously, this is like affiliated with CrossFit, this podcast, but like, just because a form of exercise is like one that maybe more traditionally like quote unquote counts and is like a sweatier exercise that like does burn calories and has the potential to change your body, doesn't inherently make it bad. What makes it not joyful movement is if you're doing it because you feel like you should, not because you actually like it. Like if you like CrossFit and you like lifting heavy weights and you like doing gymnastics moves and you like pushing yourself like to that extreme and like you like challenging your body and seeing what it's capable of, like that, awesome. If it's not for you, that's awesome too. Like something that like one of our owners, Jack, says a lot, and it's not like, I mean, a lot of people in CrossFit say this, is like CrossFit, anyone can do CrossFit. CrossFit's not for everybody, and that's okay. Like, and like anyone is physically capable of it. Like it's scalable to any body. It's scalable to any situation. Like my dad who's disabled that's CrossFit now for 2 years. Like you can scale it to anyone, like, but it's not for everyone. And if your relationship with it is going to be something that you hate or dread or don't like going, it's not for you. So I don't know. I wanted to put that in there as like a disclaimer.
Yeah.
Especially, I don't know, there's so much about it. Like, I think it's like one of the more extreme, maybe, like types of exercises. And I think people a lot of times, like, I don't like a lot of times people kind of have negative connotations for it for a lot of reason. And I sometimes feel like I'm shouting into a dark hole, or I'm the minority opinion in the CrossFit world about like body positivity and body confidence, which is also why I
absolutely
and be like, just like the nutrition voices are really loud, and like there is value to everything that like there's value to all of the things that people in CrossFit headquarters, people that do CrossFit that talk about nutrition, there is value to what they're saying. I think, again, like some people take it too far, but I think that those voices tend to be louder, but like you can, like the anti-diet movement is also very important and has an extreme amount of value. Obviously, it just tends to be a quieter voice, especially in the CrossFit community.
Yeah, so. Especially, in the fitness community in general.
And the fitness community,
And it's tough to realize that when either you've been an athlete, like all of you folks, or if you have like had an athletic profession. So like, for example, you teach CrossFit now, and I've taught spin for like 5 years. You know what I mean? And spin is also one of those things that I literally love. I think it's because of the music. You got to break it down in the music. But I love, and it's definitely considered like something that burns a lot of calories, something that makes you sweat a lot, something that a lot of people, like you said, like CrossFit, literally hate. So it's not joyful movement for everyone, but it is joyful movement for me. But back to the point about the fitness industry, it was tough for me after working in it for so long, and personally feeling like I worked at a pretty accepting place. I worked at like like there was only one of them, so like a single spin studio in DC, and like a lot of like our clientele was just also kind and like so down to earth, and like I had a positive experience, and I think other people did too. But given that I had that experience, when I started really delving into all of the anti-diet stuff and realizing like it's rampant in the fitness industry, and it like made me kind of feel like bad for working in it, because I was like, oof, this is like, this is tough.
And I've had that too, like, and I think that what's awesome is like, you are a voice, and like I hope to be a voice too of like kind of what we said at the beginning, like being anti-diet is not being anti-nutrition or well-being, and it's not anti-fitness. It just is having like a relationship with fitness that's good for your mental health, and a relationship with food and nutrition that's good for your mental health. Like there's, again, it's like another Instagram thing, like I saw, or a tweet or something I saw the other day, is like, like sugar is bad for you, but it's also bad for you, like having panic attacks about eating sugar, like so like you, or like, and that's an example. I don't think that's quite what it said, but it was basically like the notion of like, like certain foods can be bad for you, like quote unquote, but like also food controlling your mental health is more harmful to you than anything. Like your mental health is like, I personally think like if your mental health is not in a good place, like nothing else matters. Like that should be everyone's number one priority in their life. Like you can have all the career success, you can have the quote unquote perfect body, you can have whatever, but like if you're in shambles internally, and like I can say that as someone's been there at different points, like none of that matters. Like you can have everything like on paper that you think you need, but if you're crumbling internally, like it doesn't matter. You gotta put your health first. So like, and that's a whole tangent, me rambling, but like you were saying, like, like I think in the fitness community, it's extra important to have these conversations of like, you can be really into fitness. Like you can be so into fitness and also be aggressively anti-diet. Like, and that is,
yes, exactly. Yes.
That is the key. Like,
no, you're so right. I couldn't have said that better. That's what it's about, is you can't sacrifice your mental health for your physical health. And another thing that that I definitely experienced, the thing that's sad about eating disorders, I'm having such a hard time not about to bite this cuticle. Sorry, y'all are seeing how rough my nails are. You see the cuticle?
I love because oh my god.
But so something that I definitely had a hard time with was the fact that food is so social. food is such a social experience anytime that you're eating it, right? Anytime that you're like, I mean, for some people not, I eat by myself a good bit too, but
Yeah.
food, typically when there are humans gathering, there is food. And for it to impact my social life as well, or feeling like it was impacting my social life, was like kind of stressful. That was definitely an experience that I had.
I did too. And like, I think like, again, just, I mean, whatever, I'm in the business of full disclosure at this point. Like, I got to a point with my relationship with food in college and my body and wanting to be in the best shape for sailing, that I didn't go to team gatherings. I didn't go out to eat with my team. I didn't go out to eat with friends.
So isolating.
I didn't go to like parties. Like, I didn't do anything because I was like, this is what I can eat and drink. And I can't go out to dinner with you people because like, I can't eat that food, or like, I'm not going to go to the party because like, I'm not going to like drink, which is like, okay, maybe that's a good choice. Like, on the drinking front, like, whatever. But it's also like, I now can say that like, I look back on college and it makes me very sad that I did not have the social experience that I think that people should have in college, because I was so focused on thinking that I was like holier than thou by like only eating like perfect food and never drinking and never doing anything so that I could like succeed in a sport. And then like, I did to an extent, like we both did, like we both had great success in college sailing, and like, and that's cool, and it's something I'm proud of.
But then the rest of your life begins, and what now?
Yeah, it's like I think about like right now in quarantine, my mom every Friday night talks to her college friends on a big Zoom call, and I'm like, there's an element of that like I don't have, because I didn't go out and socialize because I was so worried about food. Like, that's crazy. And like, I just share that in the hopes that like that is not the case for anyone that listens to this, that you can like, talk about these things and recognize these things and change patterns of behavior before that. Because I think at any point, like a good solid rule is like, if you don't go to a social outing because you're worried about how it will affect your meal plan, or if you go out and you stay out too late and you don't get to wake up early to go to a workout, like that's a good sign that like maybe talk to someone like that you trust.
Yeah.
Like, that's a problem. Like if all of a sudden working out or food becomes more important than people in your life, that's like mental health and people are the most important. And like,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
There's this girl, you might follow her, Lee from America.
Yeah.
I love it. But so I followed her. I started following her when I was like deep in my trenches, like in college. And she essentially she wasn't vegan, and she wasn't like she was very thin. But she wasn't like super, super thin like some people. So when I went through my social media detox, which I'm also about to talk to you guys about, I kept her for some reason. I didn't really see her as a threat to my mental health.
I would say her body type is pretty similar to like both of us, like athletic, like looks like in good shape, like quote unquote, and like thin, but not like so thin that you're like, oh my God. Like, like,
yes, exactly. She wasn't posting like pics in her bikini with like her like six pack of abs. Okay. And so,
or like more relatable, it wasn't her like in like yoga pants and like a sports bra with her abs. Like it was just like,
exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, continue.
But so she essentially was like a wellness blogger. And she disappeared from Instagram for like
a while.
For like 9 months, 6 months, 9 months, and came back and basically was like, I'm so sorry to everyone that I hurt with like my toxic messages about wellness culture. Like I had terrible orthorexia, and like my entire life was taken over by social media and like having all of my food perfect and having all of and I thought about this because she just went on, like she had done a year no alcohol, like right before this happened. Which I mean, if you want to go a year no alcohol, power to you. But if you're going to go a year no alcohol just because of what it's bad for your body, and you're also doing all these other things, just your body and like whatever, what you're eating, and spending a bunch of money on crazy stuff at the store and supplements and like whatever, I don't know if that's what her deal was, but I just know that she she left social media for like a year and came back and was like, I'm so sorry, I was so disordered. And I had no idea.
Yeah.
And finally I got to a breaking point and I went in a treatment, and she hasn't really said much more about it besides that, but she has said like, this was orthorexia. This was me being obsessed with my health to the point where it like broke me.
Yeah. I think just a note on that, obviously, like we do not condone underage drinking. Like all of you should not be drinking, athletes. But
yes,
like,
that's true. None of you should be drinking. Sorry.
yeah, like just a note. But like, I mean, hopefully some adults listen to this too. Maybe some parents, maybe some other members of the gym. Like, yeah, like I think that there's a lot of people that choose not to drink or don't drink very often as adults that are over 21 and legally allowed to drink. And like, great, that's awesome. If that works for you, that's awesome. I think that's great. I think that's congrats. Like I don't drink very much, like really, like, and I never really did, like in general, like even before I kind of got in my trenches of like drinking. Like both my parents don't really drink much. My dad doesn't drink at all anymore. His health, but like I just wasn't someone that ever did. But like, yeah, sometimes I do, and like it's fine. Like, and like some people drink a lot, some people don't drink ever, and everything is. Everyone can make their individual choices as legal 21 and over adults that choose to indulge in alcoholic beverages or not. But yeah, like you said, like, you're doing it because you think like it's gonna make you my words, holier than thou, like, or you're doing it because you think that like, oh my God, I don't want to drink my calories. Like, I don't know, whatever in general, but yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, again, back to that like morality surrounding food, right? And morality surrounding like what you are if you eat a certain food. What does that say about you? Really, it says nothing. Food is food, and you're a human being, but we attach all this to it. Which is some whack shit. So speaking of,
which
I'll
goes
back to intuitive eating.
Good pivot.
So intuitive eating, again, just recently been learning about it, but essentially what it is, and what was your major, Ellie?
History.
Okay. Oh, I knew that. I think I knew that.
Yeah, and political science. So yeah.
But if anyone is into psych, again, I know you guys maybe have taken AP Psych or high school psych, but from a psychological perspective, this whole intuitive eating thing actually makes a lot of sense, because basically what the deal is that you're supposed to eat the foods that you want when you want, based on your natural hunger and fullness cues. I believe that there are like 6 principles to intuitive eating in Evelyn Tribole's book, which I'm going to show you the link to after this, which is like the original source for intuitive eating as a plan, as a program. But so you eat what you want, and you listen to your natural hunger and fullness cues, and you don't look at good foods, bad foods, and it's not a diet. So it's not about restricting your weight. You're supposed to, as much food as like you actually want to eat, you should eat. And it's also not something where you can only eat. So some people, I think that they think they're intuitively eating because they eat when they want to eat, and then they don't eat when they don't feel like they need to eat. And then they will never eat if they're not hungry.
Right.
So for intuitive eating, like you can eat even if you're not hungry. You're welcome to eat whenever you want. You deserve to eat whenever you feel. But just kind of that is also, I think, something that's important, because I was like, okay, well, if we're listening to our hunger and fullness cues, like, can I never just have an Oreo because I want an Oreo? It's like, no, I'll have an Oreo if you feel like having one. But the reason that this exists, or the mechanism through which they say that it works, is, so let's say that either there are usually 2 situations that are most commonly described in terms of people having difficult relationships with food. So one of them is that they had some sort of disordered eating in which they were restrictive with their foods and their calories, or B, someone maybe grew up in a lower SES, socioeconomic status area, lower income, and didn't really actually truly have access to a lot of food, and definitely not a variety of food. So there's 2 ways in which that can manifest for people. But either way, what happens is that folks end up looking at some foods as having, so let's say you're someone that's recovering from like a restrictive eating disorder. You look at an Oreo and you're like, that's a bad food. That's a terrible food. I should never eat that food. It's going to make me fat, right? Let's say that you're someone who grew up in a low SES area and you see an Oreo. You're like, oh, I never really got to eat Oreos. I would really love that Oreo because I never got to eat it, right? Either way, it has this high, like salience is a word that we would describe, which means importance, essentially. So when we strip away that importance from food, we allow ourselves to really only eat how much of it we want at that time, because we realize we can eat it at a later date. So this comes back to the diet binge cycle. With the diet binge cycle, You see an Oreo, you're like, I can't eat it. I'm on a diet. I can't eat it. It's terrible for me. Okay, fine. I'll eat it. Okay, fine. I'll eat 5. Okay, I'll eat the whole box. Boom, diet binge, right?
Yeah.
Because we tell ourselves that these things are so bad that we should never have them. And then once we do have a little bit, we're like, I'm never having it again. So I'm going to eat as much as I can, right?
Yeah.
And so with intuitive eating, it's essentially trying to teach people that you can eat whatever you want, whenever you want, but you really need to listen to your body and take in those like sensual experiences, not sensual, but like you know what I mean?
Sensory.
Sensory. Thank you. Take it. I'm like on a podcast for your high school. I was telling them to take in sensual experiences. That's not what I meant.
Sensory experiences, guys.
Sensory experiences.
Oh my God, they're so
yeah.
cute.
So essentially, just paying attention to your sensory experiences and what you actually want when you want it. And this girl in this book, she was talking about. So she also was an anorexia recover. So she had anorexia for like a long time and was hospitalized numerous times. And she said that when she started intuitive eating, she was like afraid that she would never stop eating half-baked cookie dough. And she was like, when I started it, I was eating a ton of cookie dough and like it went for like a few days and I was like, I wonder when this is going to stop. And then eventually it stopped. And now she's not like afraid of cookie dough. And she doesn't think that cookie dough is like this miracle thing that like she can never have. And then when she gets a little bit, she has to eat it all because she realizes that she can have it whenever she wants, right? So when you detach that salience or importance to food, hopefully you mitigate the amount that you maybe binge on them when they come up, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, like, and I feel like I went through that too. Like, even again, like when like quarantine started, the first like week, I literally went around eating like Honey Nut Cheerios and peanut butter and jelly and Cape Cod chips with hell of a good dip and cinnamon buns and cookies. And I was like, oh, I even had the thought like now I was like, is this what I'm gonna eat every day? Like I was like, I need to
exactly.
But I just kind of was like, I'm gonna let myself do it. And like day like 6, I was like, okay, like I want a smoothie with spinach in it. Like I want to eat, like a bunch of fruit. Like eventually your body gets sick of eating sugary stuff and you're like, give me a vegetable, give me water.
Yeah,
like,
perfect example.
Better. And like it went away. And now like I think like that too is like there's a whole other element of that of like a stress response to the larger global pandemic and issue. And like my stress response has always been to like undereat and eat Honey Nut Cheerios. It's very weird. Anytime something's stressful, like if you see me eating Honey Nut Cheerios, like someone should ask me like, are you okay? Like it's like something's
wrong.
Like I'm stressed. Like, but no, I think like whatever it is, like intuitive eating, I think people get afraid, and I definitely was of like, oh my gosh, am I going to eat like bad, quote unquote bad foods for like, but no, eventually your body wants like we're humans that like enjoy fruits and vegetables and like meats and proteins to an extent, like or not. Like I don't eat a lot of meat because I just don't like it, but like you'll pivot back. That's the key.
No, that is the key. That's definitely the key. And that's a perfect example. So I've been trying to work on it more. I definitely am like a boredom eater, like big time boredom eater. So that's made like this, and I'm also like a TV hand to mouth eater. So it's been interesting for me in quarantine, but it just talks to you about like in terms of if you're also a TV hand to mouth eater, for example, what happens, I read this the other day, but when you multitask and eat, your sensory cues in terms of your hunger and fullness get kind of dulled because you're taking in all this other information and you're not really recognizing whether or not you're full or not.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And so sometimes people are like, it's bad to eat in front of the TV because you'll just sit there and like eat away and like not really realize what you're, how much you're eating. But I've just been trying to just pay attention to if I'm full or not. And if I'm not full, I'll eat more. And if I am full, then I will maybe pause for a little bit. Maybe I'll eat that stuff that was left over in 30 minutes. We don't know. But so intuitive eating. That being said, two disclaimers. So if you've never had a distressing relationship with food, then you probably are currently intuitive eating and you don't even realize it. So that's what's important, is that if you're like, oh, I don't really like, this kind of seems weird, or like, I don't know if I need to do, like, maybe you already are doing this. This is something that we're all born with. We all cry when we come out and we're like, give me some milk, and then we get the milk and then we just turn our head when we're done, So like this is something that we've always been doing it. But it gets distorted when you diet, and it gets distorted when you have a disordered relationship with food. So that is the first disclaimer, that you might already be doing intuitive eating.
Which like snaps and claps, like you're awesome. Like,
right?
like that's
yeah,
great.
snaps and claps. And I don't remember what the second one is, so I guess I can just move on. So my next slide is just, this is just the Food Psych podcast with Christy Harrison has a bunch of information on joyful movement and intuitive eating, if you're more interested in that. If you're specifically interested in intuitive eating as a concept, or like learning how to intuitively eat, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Reich wrote this book. I think it's on its like 6th edition or something crazy now, but I'm planning on reading it very soon.
It's actually so like $7. I ordered it like a couple weeks ago, actually. It's like yeah, it's super cheap on Amazon.
Okay. Love this for us. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm gonna do that.
It was yeah.
And so then,
I love this.
I know, I do too. Hold on, I'll zoom out a little bit. Okay, so to finish out, I guess we're still kind of on that. Okay, we just spilled mega tea about diet culture that we maybe didn't even know existed, and so what do we do now? So we're still there. And so this is more kind of, I guess, the segment on not necessarily helping yourself heal with body positivity and behaviors you can do with yourself, but helping society as a whole heal from like these perceptions that we have about folks, essentially, and how we interact with them. So let's do it. Let's get to this little boy. So non-appearance-based compliments are really great. And essentially, there's so many examples of what you can say, but it's, believe it or not, you say something nice about someone that doesn't have to do with their body. It's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it kind of is when we think about it, because we really don't do it all that often. But my favorite one, I like the "you are the bad" ASS one here. I also love the "you have really opened my eyes" about. And then here, let's see if we can find, I put some other ones from, again, the wonderful Kenzie Brenna. If you don't follow her immediately. So every time I talk to you, I learn something new. You inspire me. You have such great style. You explain yourself eloquently. I love this one because this is what I desire people to tell me, even though I have graded it. I'm learning and practicing.
Yeah.
We're out here. But yeah, so you're such a hard worker. You're so thought-provoking. You have a really great sense of self. So again, just kind of compliments that you can give people that aren't like, oh, that skirt is cute is always great, but specifically in regards to people's actual bodies, sometimes it's great to just take the focus away from what we look like and recognize that we have more to offer going down deep inside. So let's see what else we got. So appearance-based compliments. Okay. And then this is probably the most important, but okay, it's not the most important slide. I think they were all relatively important, but this one is
hard to read
so essential. It's so essential. And I was looking for more stuff to put on it. And I was like, honestly, I should have written more because this is important, but like, that's it. Like, unfollow everything that doesn't serve you. Unfollow everything that makes you compare with other people, compare your body, compare your life. Unfollow anything that makes you overanalyze your body. Just don't have it in the realm of things that you can see. Just don't have it there. This was the most helpful thing for me, for sure. I literally found this girl, Body Posy Panda. I'll have her link up at the end. I'll have her in there. Literally found this girl, and like, she didn't say on any of her posts or something like unfollow people, but I just started realizing when I saw the contrast of her against the other stuff that I had on my feed, I was like, this doesn't make me feel good. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's really, and it's been making me feel bad for a long time and I didn't even know. So again, just decreasing any social comparison that you find yourself engaging in, because that is kind of what it's all about. Not what it's all about. There are a lot of different reasons why people have troubled relationships with food in their bodies, but that's one. So yeah, if you have an Instagram, if you have a Tumblr, if whatever you have, unfollowing pictures of people just with their body out and all this stuff. And another thing, so on this note, I think it's, if you are going to take this advice and go forward with the social media detox, I praise you either way, regardless of who you decide to unfollow, because you know what's best for you. And I think that it's taking a great step, but I will caution folks just to be wary that there are ways in which diet culture is like incredibly sneaky, and will try to stick around and tell you that it's not trying to make you a smaller human being and trying to make you take up less space, even if it is. And an example of that is like Fitspiration or Fitspo. So if anybody follows any Fitspo accounts, that is probably a good thing that you might want to unfollow. I'm sure that people do. With being with CrossFit, I'm sure that you guys follow CrossFit legends and goddesses. And that's something that's special to you. That's like a niche for you all. And for me, when I was in all of this deep darkness, my niche was like veganism, right? And I lived in rural St. Mary's County, so there were no vegans around me. So where did I seek for my community? Online. And it ended up being, right, Ellie knows there were no vegans around me. She's like, I was vegetarian, but yeah, so unfollowing any accounts really that make you think negatively about your body, especially those that involve fitness, because like we were talking about, practicing joyful movement does not go hand in hand with like, look at my body and what I did today. Sorry, I just did a thing on the camera you guys couldn't probably see, but okay. Yeah.
I think too, like something I did like for a while too is like on Instagram, you can like hide people too. Like you don't have to like fully unfollow them. Like you can just hide them so they don't pop up in your feed. Like, especially if it's someone that's like, personally, like I did that for a while with people I knew personally.
That's true.
Like seeing them would make me like compare myself, and like, so I would just like, I was like, I don't want to offend them, so I'm just gonna like hide.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
And like, that's a good tip. Like, I think that's a good first step. And like, I go through phases of that. Like, I follow a lot of different CrossFit accounts that I guess you could say are Fitspo, kind of, but like for coaching tips and like things that have different like mobility work or different ways to teach a skill. And like, what I do is I hide them so they don't just pop up on my feed like planned. Like, but that, so if I am sitting down and I say to myself, like, I'm trying to figure out how I want to coach like a clean and jerk tomorrow. Okay, well, maybe I'll pull up, so-and-so's account and look through and see if they have anything on it. But then I put it away, and I don't like, it's like I went and I looked for it for the resource and the purpose, but I don't let it just pop up, because what if I'm having a bad evening with like, how I relate to myself, and I'm scrolling through Instagram and all of a sudden I see so-and-so and like they are super jacked and awesome, and then that's going to make me sad. So like I try to I still follow it because it's like there's still a good resource there, but I kind of compartmentalize it into a space of like I have to go looking for it because I want it for the resource reason, not the comparison reason.
Yes, exactly. That's a really good point. Yeah,
which I think can be useful for whatever it is. Maybe like, if some of these athletes, like maybe once you get into college, you can't go to CrossFit, but you want to work out and you like following people that post different workout ideas, like hide them so that they don't just pop up when you're but if you actually want to go look and say, okay, I want a workout routine to do in the gym, you can go look for that, but it's not just going to pop up unannounced and be like, you're laying in bed and letting yourself relax and you're having a great day. And then all of a sudden you see a picture of someone that's working out and then you feel bad that you're not working out when like you should take a rest day sometimes. Yeah,
exactly. The perfect, and I mean, not to hate on her, I'm sure that she's lovely and fabulous, but the example of this that I'm sure that you've seen too, what for me, like the big Fitspo example of this is Kayla Itsen.
Yeah.
And her abs will just pop out there with her like sculpted body. I'm like, girl, you gotta get out of here with that. You gotta get out of here with that. Yeah,
that's so funny. I'm gonna have to figure out how to bleep that now.
I know, sorry.
It's okay. I'm the worst too with it, so we'll figure it out.
I totally forgot that I was recording this for high schoolers for a large section of the beginning part.
It's okay. It's all good.
But yeah, so I mean, I guess that's really all I wanted to say on this. Again, I feel like I should put more on this slide, but it's so important and it's so simple. Just anything on Instagram that makes you feel bad about yourself, do away with it. It's gone. It's cherished or hide it, like Ali said.
Yeah. Or following that stuff doesn't make you feel bad about yourself. Okay. But like really reflect and like be honest with yourself, like about, does it make you feel bad about yourself? Like, really be honest. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that kind of leads back to, I mean, we can be honest as much as we'd like, or as well as perfectly as we can, but ultimately the things that we see are it's subliminal messaging. So it's like we don't really realize that it's coming in. We don't really realize that it might be making us a certain way. But the reality is that if you're 150 pounds and you walk down the street and you see advertisements and everyone in the advertisements is under 80 pounds, that's not true. But I'm just saying, if everyone is drastically smaller than you, that's going to factor into how you feel about your body, even if you don't realize it in that moment.
Right.
So that's something important too. just to know that it can have that effect on you. I'm not like, it's gonna sneak up on you in the night, but like it can, you know, and you might not realize, that's making me feel upset. Yeah, I definitely didn't realize until I was like away with all of this, you know.
That's true.
But yeah, so social media detox, that is also a good thing to do for you. And then this is my second to last slide. This is just resources. So again, I have Megan's book here, and then the Food Psych podcast, which is literally amazing. If you're specifically interested in orthorexia, which as Elle and I spoke about, we both probably, I don't know about you, but I mean, that's my big interest. So when I go to school, I'm going to be doing orthorexia research because I don't think there's enough research done on it. And that's my personal eating disorder experience or disordered eating experience. And I think I'm assuming because it was yours as well, then you would also be interested in it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh my gosh, that's so cool you're doing that. That's great.
Yeah, but so there's a ton of episodes on orthorexia, which is so cool because like Ellie and I said, it's not technically a diagnosable eating disorder. It's not technically in this book, it doesn't technically exist yet, which is why we need more research to demonstrate that it is out there. Because there's a lot of people that come on and talk about their experience, and it was just very validating for me to hear them all speak, because I was like, oh my God, I so identify with that. Like, oh, I so identify with that. And I think that leads to another really important point, which is just that like the first step to like feeling better if you are having a tough relationship with your body or having a tough relationship with food is talking to someone about it. So I personally had so much like shame about it that I went to a counselor because I didn't even want to talk to any of my friends about it. I went to a counselor at my college and made an appointment at the counseling center and was like, yo, I have a messed up relationship with food because I can't live like this anymore, right? Yeah. But just finding someone to talk to about it and then just being open about it, because the more we recognize that like everyone struggles sometimes with how they feel about their body, the less weird it becomes to do so, which is, I think, important.
That is awesome. Yeah. I think it's true. Like I kind of like, I don't want to say I got like forced into talking about it, but my like breaking point that I was like talking about like was with like a family member who was like, okay, like let's address this. Like it kind of made me realize like, oh, it's time to talk about it. Like, you know, and so it's hard. Like, you know, if you like, I don't know, like, and I think asking for help, like whether that's, you know, if you can get yourself your own appointment with someone, great. If it's saying something to a trusted friend, great. If it's saying something to me, awesome. If it's saying something to your parents, great. Like whoever it is, like just say something to someone, like get the conversation going. I think like the first time I really realized like this was an issue was like probably about 3 years ago. And like, it's a process, maybe two or three. And like, it's definitely a process and it ebbs and flows. And like, I think too, like something that's good. And I remind myself of this is like, you know, it's not an instant fix either. Like it's kind of like a lot of things. It's a lifelong like process of like, okay, like I said, like, you know, when the whole quarantine thing started, I like got really like scared. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to eat like cinnamon buns and Cheerios forever. And then I was like, it's fine. Like I had to like talk myself down and be like, it's going to be okay. Like it's going to take work, like a lot of things, but it's worth it. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely worth it. Freedom's freaking worth it. And this is the most important slide. You should go follow all of these people. So Body Posy Panda, that's Megan. She's amazing. Kelly Yu's also amazing. Kenzie Brenna, we also had. Ken Ethan Jones is Body Posy Panda's boyfriend. Just so I'm giving you guys a tea, just so you know. Birds Papaya, Sarah, she's great. She's in Canada, and then Body Brave Canada, and then this Sarah, I believe, is in Finland. She's also amazing. She does a bunch of like she'll take 2 photos of her body and she'll be like Instagram versus reality, which is like so important in the beginning of the social media detox, kind of realizing what is real and what is not real, and how people can make one body look so different just based on like the angle in which someone takes a photo.
Yeah.
Which is also like, oh, that's a whole nother thing just with social media and body image being that Kenzie Brenna spoke on the Birds Papaya, this girl here that I have listed in the middle. Kenzie Brenna spoke on her podcast, on Sarah's podcast, and she said, hold on, I'm drawing a blank. Oh, girl, I'm drawing a total blank. It was important.
It's okay.
What was I talking about?
Kenzie Brenna. Oh gosh.
Oh, Instagram versus reality. And and they were talking about just the like digital literacy and like being in the digital world and recognizing that like our world, like the human world out here outside of like this, exists on certain like it has, what did she say? So like it has certain rules essentially. It like exists underneath guise of these certain rules. The digital world does not exist under any rules essentially. You know, like these things that you see and look real, they're not actually real. And I was listening on another, I think it was Chrissy Harrison's podcast, and this girl was saying how she used to edit her photos of her, like Photoshop her photos to make her look a little thinner. And then once she was like getting into her eating disorder recovery, she was looking back at these photos and she was feeling so bad at herself and thinking like, oh, I used to be so thin. And then she would realize that's not even real. I literally never looked like that. And now I'm looking at pictures of myself, comparing myself to stuff that never existed. That's why Instagram is so terrifying, is because people could just edit all their stuff and then put it up. And then we all look at it like plebeians and we're like, why don't we look like that? It's because she used Photoshop. It's because she used literal Photoshop.
Even like filters or like different angles of the phone. Like I looked at a picture like kind of accidentally from a while ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what? And then I was like realizing, I was like, I think this is like angled weird and I'm like standing weird. Like that's why I look like that, not because I actually looked like that. Like
exactly. So that is like a whole nother thing about Instagram that I could just talk about forever and ever, just because digital literacy and just people knowing that stuff is so important, because we just look at it and we think that it's real. We look at the stuff and we think, oh, that operates within the rules that like we operate inside in the real world, and so it should, that just is how it is. But that's not how it is. It's never how it is, you know.
It's crazy. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I feel like we both could talk for like years about this. Like you should start a podcast about this. Like, oh my gosh. Like once you start your, like, I mean, I'm sure you'll be so busy once you start like your doctorate, but it'd be cool.
My dream is literally to be on Christy Harrison's podcast one day.
Well, we'll tag her in all this. This will be, no, just kidding. This will not be your launching pad for that. We do not have enough of a phone.
Launching pad. Yeah. I'm honored. Also, I mean, I'm impressed with you to have all the technological wherewithal to put this up on the web, girl. Go you.
Gosh, I'm gonna tell you, learning YouTube was a challenge. Like these little Gen Xers with YouTube, I was like, oh my gosh, how do we upload? Like it took me like a whole day. Like the podcast part, easy peasy. Like the YouTube account, I was like, what? And I'm like watching all these like 13-year-old vlogger videos that are like, how to start your YouTube channel. And I was like,
and you were like, thank you for putting
I was like, you were
so
born in 2006. Like I can't handle this. Like not even 2006 would make them older. Like it was funny.
Yeah, dude. I know. You're so right.
Yeah, it's so funny. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. This was incredible.
Yeah, is there anything else that like you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to talk about or have questions about? Again, disclaimer, not an expert. I kind of just rolled with the whole presentation. I want to make sure that there's nothing you want to talk about.
No, we really covered like everything, but I'll say it too, like I'll make sure to link like all of those accounts that you reference like in the notes and stuff, and you as well. And like if we get any like questions or feedback, like maybe we'll have you come back. We'll do like, I feel like we're gonna have people that have questions and comments on this episode, because I feel like it was just such a wealth of knowledge. And like we get a lot of feedback, and this is me speaking to listeners and viewers. Like if you guys have questions, comments, like send them in. We'll get Hannah to come back. We'll do it again. I love a good excuse to talk to Hannah De La Playa.
I know. Love a little rekindling for us.
I know, it's so cute. It's so fun. Like it's been a fun part of this whole podcasting process. Like it's a good reason to talk to someone else for an hour and a half. And
and I love that you're doing it.
It's awesome. I hope that we can get you back. I hope you come back on, and we'll just
let me know what you want to chat about.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, thank you again. This was such a pleasure, and hopefully we get some good feedback on it. Cool.
Catch you later, folks.
Bye, people.